Hey everyone, it's John Gonzalez from United in Mission, One Heart and Mind. And on today's show, we're talking to Taylor Piotrzkowski. He is the coordinator for young adult and youth ministry here for the Diocese of Saginaw. And let's make sure he knows he's on the show today. You know you're on the show this week, right, Taylor?
I am?
Yeah. Well, we got to go record.
Great. Yeah, let's do it. We're talking about, young adult retreat coming up April 12th, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So real quick, what is it? When is it? April 12th?
Yeah, April 12th. A ton of good stuff going on. I'm excited because it's about how to pray, which I think everybody needs. So I love speaking about how to hear God's voice. There's just so much good stuff happening with it.
All right, well, let's save it off for the show, right?
Okay,
all right,
sounds great.
Let's get to it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to United in Mission, One Heart and Mind, a podcast from the Catholic Diocese of Saginaw. I'm your host, John Gonzalez, the Director of Communications here at the Diocese. Inspired by Acts 4:32, we believe that by coming together, one heart and one mind, we can strengthen our faith and live out our mission as disciples of Christ. Now, we have three pillars here at the Diocese. It's number one, to love and support our priest. Number two, to form disciples on mission. And number three, go after the lost sheep. Under the leadership of Bishop Robert Gruss, this podcast will explore our pillars and the many ways we are united in faith, service, and love. Join us as we share stories of hope, inspiration, and the power of community in our diocese. You'll find this episode, videos, events, and many more resources on our website. Just go to saginaw.org. Now, let's get to the show. All right, Taylor, how you doing over there?
I'm doing good, John. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on because we get to talk about one of my favorite things, praying. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny because I feel like a lot of people make prayer more complicated than it is, but I don't know. I feel like I love taking it back to basics, which is why I love doing retreats about it.
Yeah, so it's coming up. We should remind everyone why we're talking on today's One Heart and Mind podcast. It's how to pray it's a young adult retreat coming up April 12th. You can sign up now. I believe the deadline to sign up is April 10 because you need to plan on how many people are going to be there. This is going to take place at the Center for Ministry here in Saginaw at the Catholic Diocese of Saginaw, and you help organize this. Is this the first time you've done this young adult retreat on how to pray?
Yeah, I mean, as far as a young adult retreat, we had, it was almost like an evangelization training event for college students back in the summer. But this is like the first like big young adult retreat that I think has ever happened. I mean, maybe there's some that happened in the diocese before, not since I've been here, not since I've heard from other people. But I think how to pray is so foundational. And so when I was praying on it, it felt very clear, like this is where we need to start.
So tell me, when you say young adult retreat, so I consider you a young adult, but then again, I mean, you might be in your 20s, and early 30s and still you're young adult. So please define young adult for me.
Yeah. I mean, the classic definition that you often hear is 18 to 35. One of our really great groups, just shout out to them, St. Hubert's out in Bad Axe, Emily Tenbush, some other people there that are running. They have one where they're like young moms and they're like, wow, we're starting to get in like our upper like 30s, our late 30s. And I was like, we can sneak you in, like you can come in. So let's say like under 40, but usually we'd say 18 to 35. But if you consider yourself a young adult, if you're close to that, I know for me, I'm 33, I've got two kids. And so I'm starting to slide towards, I feel like I'm starting to lose that self-identity. But if you still have that, you are welcome. But if you're like 50, we don't necessarily, there's other events and things for you. Right. But I think maybe having 18-year-old to 15-year-old is not always the greatest fit for something like this.
Yeah, no. I'd certainly agree. And, but I think it's great. Before we talk more about the event, tell me, how are things going in the Diocese of Saginaw when it comes to this audience, right? This 18 to 35 group, because it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like there's an excitement in the diocese and around the country, really, for this age group. They're starting to like rediscover, or for the first time discover, what it means to be Catholic.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that, which we could get to, like sociologically, all those other things. But here in the diocese, it's been something. So for me, more of my background was in, young adult, like college ministry. And so I made it a point really early on to connect with all these different leaders and Some I've done a lot collaborating with. Some I'm just trying to support in whatever way that they want. But we have 4 groups right now. They're kind of, we have one in Saginaw. We've actually 3 out in the Thumb, which I think is crazy. There's one out in Gladwin, and there's actually, I just heard earlier this week, there's one looking to start up at St. Michael's in Maple Grove, actually from a couple of college students one of them who's graduating, who I've been mentoring. And so I think there's a lot of amazing things going on. I visited most of these ministries and got to see the leadership, what they're doing. And I'm just seeing people grow and doing amazing stuff. So for me, this event is really an opportunity to bring people together, from them not to be in their own little, silo or bubble, to see like there's actually a greater movement of young adult ministry happening within this diocese. So that's something I've been really excited to support in this role here.
Well, and the fruits that is, it's paying off, because I was at the Rite of Election call to continuing conversion a couple weeks ago at the cathedral, and I saw a big group from St. Mary's in Mount Pleasant.
Yeah. Father Matthew Dombrowski, he is awesome. He loves walking with people. He's doing such great leadership out there. And even like they've had a focus team and some like good leadership just overall. And I think there's such a hunger for it within young adults, for Jesus, for the truth of the church. There's so many different reasons why people come to the church. But really, I think it really just starts with relationships, walking with people, because God is already seeking all these people out. Like he's already calling them to himself. So we just need to walk with him. We need to answer the call when he's calling us to step in with these people.
I think that's great to bring up. In fact, I have a couple of clips here. I'm not sure if I can, I'll do my best to play them for you.
Sure.
But I would love to get your thoughts on it. But before we do that, you mentioned Father Matt in Mount Pleasant, and he'll be one of the speakers. Can we run down a little bit more about the event on April 12th? What can people expect, and who are some of the speakers?
Sure. So we're going to have a few different sessions. So I'll do the first one, which is on basically how to hear God's voice, which I think that's something that almost everyone can relate to struggling with. I heard a teaching from another kind of Catholic group a while, let's say like 4 or 5 years ago, that just totally revolutionized my ability to believe. I really believe that I could hear God's voice in a clear enough way to actually have dialogue, engage with him. And I'm gonna be honest, sometimes it's up and down. Sometimes I feel like it's very clear, very frequent, sometimes not. So I'll speak on that. And I that's a teaching that I've seen a lot of other people come and experience, and then really their prayer life kind of taking off, because that's the basic building block is conversation with God. That's really what prayer is. So I'll speak on that. We have a couple afternoon sessions. So one is with Hunter Swager. So he's the president of ID Saginaw, which is, the largest and such a great, group we have. So he's going to speak on devotion, because we have a lot of, for instance, Catholics and who are kind of rediscovering these classic devotions. He's going to be focusing on liturgy of the hours, which is just a beautiful way. This is the way that priests pray, that deacons pray, that many other lay people pray. But it's a prayer of the church that it gives us. So it's very simple and easy for people to follow. So it gives you a rhythm through your day. Leanne Osborne, so she's an amazing teacher. I've done some youth ministry and things with her. So she's from St. Bridget's, very deep. I think I'm trying to remember if she does spiritual direction or not, but she's going to speak on contemplative prayer, which that sounds really fancy, but really what it is, it's just resting and being in God's presence. So those are the main sessions. We'll also have adoration. So Father Matthew will be there kind of exposing the Eucharist. We'll have a little bit of worship. Also a lot of time for silence throughout this entire retreat. We're not just going to talk at you for 3 hours, but every single session we have, it's going to be like, hey, let's talk about how we pray. Okay, let's take 10, 15 minutes, maybe 5 minutes for whatever these styles of prayer. Let's actually do it right here and right now, because I don't want to tell you how to pray. I want you to actually practice how to do it. So we'll have a time of adoration, spending time with Jesus, and then we'll close with Mass. And that's when Father Matthew is going to be speaking. He's a great preacher, so I'm excited to have him for that.
Cost is $25. It includes lunch. Again, the deadline to register is April 10th. The event takes place on Saturday, April 12th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. The Vigil Mass begins at 4 o'clock. So you have everything planned out. I think that's great. What are you hoping? 10 kids, 20 kids? I mean, what's the goal here?
Yeah, I'm a crazy person, so I put 35.
35. Awesome.
But there's probably like 40 people, if not more, that are, come to stuff with ID Saginaw regularly. So and also I've invited college ministries because we've got CMU, as we mentioned before, with Father Matthew, Saginaw Valley, which I know they're sending a good amount of group. Alma, there's some ministry stuff starting to happen, and Northwood too as well. So my goal is to kind of pool these people, bring them together for kind of one. This will be our big thing of the year. So 35 is the hope, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Taylor, what's your exact title here at the diocese? Because I've heard a couple different things.
Yeah, so I'm a coordinator for youth and young adult ministry. So that's like middle school, high school, college, young adult.
And I think that some of let's face it, it's nothing new here. Our parishioners are a little older, right? And they might be watching this video going, you know what? I have a grandchild that would benefit from this, and maybe I should give them this video or give them more information about this event. What would you say to the older population of our diocese, and what would be the right words to maybe approach a son or daughter or a grandchild that maybe could use this?
Yeah.
Your phone's ringing. You're going to get a call from the bishop to give you the words. I love
I was going to come in. Yeah, the bishop song. Sorry, I'm too busy.
It's the bishop.
No, I'm sure they'll be cut there. So yeah, I would say too. So that's one of the reasons actually why I did this video, because what's been on my mind is that how do I reach young adults? So we do have so many that are connected to one of these 5 communities, or maybe they're in a college ministry. But I just know from times in my life, sometimes you're that young adult at a parish, like whether you're in a rural spot or you're just somewhere where there's not a lot going on. And you're like, am I like the only young adult? Am I here? Or you're even looking like, let's say you feel called to, the sacrament of marriage, but you're like, okay, where are the, even just like where are the girls, or like, who am I going to go based on that? Right. So I would say that, for older, but I would say just parishioners who have been around, who are in a parish, who want to see this blossom and grow. I would really encourage you, if you see young adult, especially if you know someone personally, just to mention this to them. Maybe, you can approach with, hey, this is a great opportunity to learn and grow, in prayer, learn how to pray, how to hear God's voice. But even just, this is a really great opportunity to connect with other young adults from across the diocese. And I'm also hoping that things like this lead to, you get to see, wow, there's this ministry happening here, in Saginaw, or in, Sandusky or Harbor Beach, wherever. It's like, if they can do it there, then I can do something at my parish. And so that's something where I would, if you're that young adult and you're like, I want to do something, but I don't know how to do it. I have a lot of experience, help starting up these groups. So I've kind of seen ways it can go right, go wrong, even though every group is a little bit different. And so I would love to kind of walk with you too as well, and helping start something at your parish.
Well, we are built for community, right? And we are built in relationship with each other and with our God. So if we don't take advantage of that and build our communities, then it's going to be a tough road ahead. And I think sometimes older adults forget how important those relationships are when you are young, 18, 19, 20. You want to surround yourself with good people, with like-minded people, that you're all on the same page, right? I mean, you think about when you're younger, I mean, you're older now, but when you're like in your early 20s, I mean, it's all about your friends and your relationships.
Yeah, something that's so core when you look at all the research for, millennials, of course, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, but I think there's just a basic community. There's just a desire for belonging. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's so much like fake relationships, I would say fake friendships, on digital, where it makes you feel like you're closer to people, that people really know you when they really don't. But people really desire to really be known, to belong, to be in a community. And that can just be, hey, like, 4 friends, meeting like every other Monday night or something, to just talk and do a Bible study or something like that. But people really have a desire to belong, which I think is just very human. And so we want to give them a vehicle to belong that's actually leading them towards Jesus. It's helping them work towards God in this life, but also, that's going to last forever too as well.
Well, I don't know if you've been following the Lenten series of videos that Bishop Gruss has been putting out. We're a few weeks in of Lent here, but this series of videos covers 6 spiritual practices to deepen our relationship with our Lord, right? And he kicked off the very first one with prayer, which I thought was a really good idea, right? I mean, he's like, we have to be able to pray, and if we don't know how to pray, we need to learn how to pray, right? So that's why the topic of your retreat coming up on April 12th is so good. It fits in exactly what the bishop is talking about. I'm going to try to play a clip here of him where he talks about this relationship with the Lord.
It's an honest conversation with our Heavenly Father, with Jesus, and with the Holy Spirit. I want you to think about your closest, healthiest relationships. Or think about 2 people who fall in love with each other. Or think back to the time when you were dating and how there was a consistent, open, and honest communication, sharing your heart, listening to the other, being present to the other. It was a relationship that communicated intimacy. The dynamic of our relationship with the Lord is the same. Intimate prayer takes us into God's heart, and He into ours. You know, St. Teresa of Avila, she had a great definition for prayer. She said, prayer, in my opinion, is nothing else than a close sharing between friends. It means taking time frequently to be alone with Him who we know loves us.
So I just love I love Bishop Gruss in that clip, right? I mean, just talking about a relationship, and I think that's what we get away from, right? Our relationship with Jesus has to be personal. It has to be one-on-one, and it has to mean something more than just like, I think I'll pray today, and that's what prayer is, right? It's just having a relationship.
Yeah, I think something people misunderstand is they think about it like, working out or eating healthy, which is, oh, if I do this today, if I do this every day, then I'm going to level up, or, maybe I'll earn some goodwill with God. And that's honestly how I used to approach it, to be honest with you. But for me, as I feel like I've grown in actual relationship with Jesus, actually knowing Him, like an actual real friendship where I can rely on Him. I feel like it's become really simple. When I pray, here, I'm really, really fortunate to do that just here in the diocese. And so I'll just go in the chapel, and Jesus is there in Tabernacle morning, but I'll just be like, hey, this is what's going on, with me. I'll start off sign of the cross. I'll say, Jesus, I expect you, if something you want to say or give to me, but it's just like, it's just kind of speaking and then listening. That's really all it is. And it's become really simple. And sometimes it's like amazing. And it's this conversation going back and forth, and almost like in a way, like you and I are talking right now. But sometimes, I feel like I'm saying a lot, I'm not hearing a lot, but I'm still showing up, and He's still there too, whether I clearly hear Him, or not. And so that's still a real relationship. So, I mean, it reminds me of showing up where, I'm married. So I talk to my wife every day, and we're like, hey, how was your day? But in a similar way, it's just talking and sharing our life with one another.
I think the other topic of prayer is that, like, we pray the Our Father, at Mass, or we may do it, in the morning or in the evening. And I think sometimes we just fall into that rhythm of we're just saying the words, right? And Bishop Gruss also, he was on with Dr. Marcus Peter, because on Ave Maria Radio, and he talked about how these memorized prayers, right? Where you can find yourself being distracted. Bishop Gruss will be speaking at the men's conference on April 5th. But if you don't mind, Taylor, I'd like to also play this one for you too.
You provide some very practical tips as to how we can grow in virtue and holiness this Lent. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to share that with our listeners.
Well, I mean, there's many ways. I mean, the first one is prayer. I mean, it's really it's foundation of who we are as disciples of Jesus, mm-hmm. right? And it's through a life of prayer and intentional prayer, where we grow in this relationship. I know when I was growing up, one of the things that I kind of reflected upon this in one of my talks, I was taught how to say prayers, so I learned a lot of prayers from memory, and but until I learned how to engage a life of prayer, not saying prayers, but really praying from the heart, really it's the heart of the matter, did I really come to know the Lord in a deeper way, which really I think in many ways led to my own conversion back to the church, but also led me to the priesthood. So that's an important part of that.
So, it's to me to have our bishop say, like, I really didn't know how to pray, when I was in my late teens and early 20s. It wasn't until I got to the seminary that I really figured out the power of prayer, right? And I think that gives us some what's the word? It gives us some idea that we don't have to be perfect. We just have to want to learn how to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of the apostles. It's like they were literally with Jesus for like a couple of years at the time. They're like, Jesus, teach us how to pray. And that's, like I said in the very beginning, I think people really overcomplicate prayer. I do think there is a place for traditional prayers. For me on my way to work, I got a commute, 45-minute commute. I'll often do a Divine Mercy Chaplet, some parts of a rosary. And so there is very much, a beautiful place for that. But at the same time, if we're only doing that and there's no prayer of the heart, there's no relational prayer, then, I would say we're missing something.
Yeah.
There, if we're not having actual conversation with Jesus every day, whether it's sitting down and praying, maybe ideally, or even just throughout the day of just being aware of God's presence and being constant conversation with him. If we don't have that conversational prayer, then we're missing a piece of the relationship that I think he wants for us to really come alive in our faith, and for us to know him and him to know us.
Well, I'm sure you could give me a long list of some of the obstacles, what prevents us from prayer, right? For me, it's obvious that our devices, we're in a million different directions. We've got multiple screens going on at the same time. I'm doing the Hallow app Lenten prayer challenge right now. Cardinal Sarah is talking about the power of silence, and he's written a book about that as well. I'm sure for young people, just like it is for us older people, just finding some time of quiet is important, right? That's probably got to be the number one obstacle.
Yeah, I think finding time for quiet, when you have more quiet in your life, it definitely helps. I think for people, they just don't know how to do it. So that's part of the things retreat. I think another piece of this is that there's not a daily habit of it. And I don't mean that if you're, for instance, so if you're someone listening and you don't really feel like, I don't really have a daily prayer life. I don't think you should start out doing an hour a day or only hour. You can hold it off. Amazing. I can't do it. For me, I've had to at certain times in my life, like for instance, when during the pandemic or when I had a new kid, my prayer life had to look totally different because what I was doing didn't work. And so I encourage people almost like working out or running, where you don't start by running a marathon. You don't start by benching 250 pounds or whatever. You start by doing okay, I'm just going to pray for 5 minutes a day. And so for me, often what I'll do, sometimes I'm I cut down my time on the weekends because I have a harder time consistently doing it. And I'll just go, we have a little prayer area. I used to just do it where I would sit up in my bed so I wouldn't fall asleep. And I would just, I would even throw my phone away or turn it off overnight. So I wouldn't do it, but I would just sit there and have 5 minutes, with Jesus, hopefully in conversational prayer. Sometimes it was awesome. A lot of times was just okay, it happened and it was fine. But I think just having a consistency, because I think really prayer is more about what God's doing in us than more what we do. It really is much more him pursuing us, but we have to still show up. We have to show up. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to, if you miss a day, don't beat yourself up. But we have to actually show up, just in the same way where if I don't talk to my wife, have a real conversation with her in a few days, there's something missing in our relationship. So we need to actually show up and have that conversation with him, even if it's short, because he'll work with whatever we give him.
You sure will. Taylor Piotrzkowski, we really thank you for being on United in Mission, One Heart and Mind on the podcast here for the Catholic Diocese of Saginaw. Any last thing you want to say to those that are listening to the podcast that have either signed up or they're thinking about signing up? Anything to that audience?
Yeah, I would just say expect God to show up. Expect God that he has something for you. I think that's such a powerful, one of the reasons retreats are so powerful, because we expect God to show up and do something. So I want you to do that. And also, something I'll be excited, which maybe we can talk about down the road, is I'll be announcing some really exciting things about where young adult ministry is going, especially in the larger almost how much the word, I don't know if it's, and we're going to have a new umbrella for young adult ministry. So if you come to that, you'll get like a sneak preview of that.
All right, Taylor, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and good luck to you on April 12th. Folks, if you want to register, it's real simple. Just go to our website, saginaw.org, and all the information is there. And go and have lunch and hang out with Taylor and the whole crew. Right, Taylor?
Yeah. Thanks, John.
See you guys, and we'll see you soon on the next podcast, United in Mission, One Heart and Mind.